Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome to another edition of eHeroes. And today's eHero is someone that I've wanted to interview for a long, long time, and we are the product of the same marketer. And we'll get into that in a little bit, but I want to welcome Kevin Thompson to the eHeroes podcast, and everybody that's listening, please pay attention because this is going to be a great interview. So, welcome, Kevin.
I'm glad to be here, Rob. Looking forward to this.
So, in my little intro, I said that we are the product of the same marketer. And, we both started out in the career of carpet cleaning. Now, prior to that, you were a fisherman. But, we came into this marketing field as struggling carpet cleaners, almost dead broke carpet cleaners.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
We came into this, probably, I received a thing in the mail saying, you got to learn marketing. And it was like a 16-page sales letter. And I'm like, what the hell? But I didn't believe it. I tossed it, it took me a good 6 more months before I finally committed myself to even pick up the phone and call again because, Joe Polish's, ponytail and long hair, what is this guy? But I think you started using Piranha marketing concepts 6 months prior to me. And, you have just, in the last 20 years, you have positioned yourself as this go-to connecting guy that just, like I said, I see it from other marketers, they go to you for, when they want to get connected with somebody, they go to you.
Yeah.
And, it's just ironic, that you started off as a carpet cleaner, just like me. And now 20 years later, you are far from being a carpet cleaner.
It's interesting. You shared your story about meeting Joe. Mine was a little bit different. I had worked for 7 years as a commercial fisherman to save up money so I could start my own business because I just thought, well, if you want to start your own business, you're going to need some money. Let's do that. So I spent 7 years doing that, and from 88 to 95, and almost got thrown off the boat in 95. And that's when I decided, okay, you know what, you've saved enough. I finished out my contract, but I was like, I'm done with this fishing thing. And started my cleaning business, the carpet cleaning business, the following year because I'd met this guy in Seattle who was in that business, and from the outside looking in, it looked like he was doing well for himself. I'm like, well, gosh, if he can do it, so can I. And that was my whole motivation for getting into the cleaning business. And it's interesting, because you mentioned Joe, and in the last 20 years, Joe and I have become really good friends, and we've had these conversations about, well, gosh, what if I wouldn't have started a cleaning business? And Joe's whole thing was, well, Kev, you were hungry. You would have found somebody no matter where you were, But I'm always, 21 years of knowing Joe now, I'm like, well, you know what? I'm sure glad it worked out the way it did, and then I got to meet you 20 years ago, And but I saw an ad from him in a trade publication. I didn't realize it was an ad at the time. I thought it was an article, and it was compelling and caused me to call his number and order his report that he was offering. I read through that report when it got there, and I immediately called and ordered his system. And I had already blown through about a couple $100,000 in that first year and wasn't making money, and was like, clearly, and I figured, I was like, you don't have a clue what you're doing, Kev. Maybe this guy Joe can help. And it turns out that he could, and thank God for credit cards at that point in my life, because I was hurting for money at that point. But got his stuff, and it worked. It worked.
And the first time I went to a Piranha marketing boot camp was 1998.
Okay.
And I followed. I returned in 2000. But it was just so overwhelming because you're in this room with 300 or 400 other people that were in the same predicament as you. They wanted to learn these concepts to get out of the rut that they had put themselves in as being the cheapest, or not positioning themselves as the go-to carpet cleaner. And there were just a lot of desperate, hungry, people at this convention, and I felt overwhelmed.
Uh-huh.
And part of me was like, this is the first time I've been to Arizona, first time I've ever been to a convention, first time I was, you know, being shoved marketing information down my throat.
That's right. That's right.
And, I fell in love with marketing at that very seminar.
Yep. Yep.
And it changed the way that I did business. And when I came back, I started implementing all these things. And it was phenomenal to see the transition that I was going from, the lowest price carpet cleaner in my area to almost the highest price carpet cleaner overnight.
Yeah.
And people were like, "What are you doing? You can't do that. You can't be higher than the highest guy. You only just started a couple years ago."
Uh-huh. Who the heck do you think you are?
Yeah, and then those competitors started copying everything that I was doing.
Uh-huh.
It was just phenomenal. Just watch this unfold.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But over the last 20 years, if it hadn't been, for Piranha Marketing, I wouldn't have become an author. I wouldn't have become a speaker. I wouldn't have learned how to teach people, the marketing that I do now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still tell people that, I might not be a carpet cleaner, but I'm still cleaning up after people.
Sure. We help them fix problems. That's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but you are going, now you are basically, I think you're more in the relationship business than you are, this marketer.
Sure.
Granted, you still do a lot of the marketing concepts that you learned all those years ago, but for now, I mean, I look at you as this giant, like I said, connector, because you're always connecting somebody to somebody else's solution. I mean, you're helping them. And it's phenomenal to watch.
Yeah.
And because, here I am on the East Coast. I think you're on the West Coast.
Yep.
And, you're teaching a lot of these marketers now who you learned from 20 years ago.
Sure.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, it's not so much teaching. I kind of started going down that route with what I do now. But when I started actually having conversations, because I mean, that was, thanks to Joe. I mean, we started that website back in 2000, the ugly little website called Get Mold Solutions, and got that thing producing some revenue, which then caused Joe to say, "Hey, why don't you come down here to the annual event and show everybody what you're doing with your website?" And we did that in 2002. And after my presentation, I was pretty much mobbed at the back of the room by people wanting me to help them. And Rob, I was so naive at the time. I just didn't even know what I didn't know. And I was like, well, I just did help you. I just showed you from stage what I was doing. They're like, no, we want more help. Mm-hmm. And Joe saw what was going on, and he pulled me aside. He's like, Kev, between now and next year, you document what you do and how you do it, and you put that into a course. I'll have you come speak again, and you just give these folks what they want. Mm-hmm. And so I did that, and next year I spoke again, and we made $35,000 in sales of that course I just created. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, at that point in my life, that was a whole lot more money than I made running that cleaning business. Yeah. And I'm like, I want to do more of that.
And here's the thing is that you documented your process for others to replicate, and you made money doing it. And we tell other people, all you have to do is to duplicate your process or tell people how your process works, and you'll make money doing it. And they're like, no, I don't want to share my process out. And they're so scared because they think that, they got this unique business that, somebody's going to come out and copy it to the point where, to me, that's foolish.
That's right.
Like you just said, you documented everything. You showed people the process of how to do it, and you were making money hand over fist.
Yep. Well, that first version, for one, having that experience at Joe's, and then what transpired from that let me know that, what, I love doing this way more than I love running the cleaning business. So the following year, April 19th of 2004, I sold the cleaning business. So I was only in that business for about 7 years. Mm-hmm. And most of that time was spent with Joe. And we went on to continue marketing that training. It was called the Automatic Income System. And over about a 12, 13-year period, we ended up selling $16.1 million worth of that training and the coaching that went along with it. And having that first experience with Joe, where he just said, hey, come down here and share. And then he saw what transpired. He said, here's what you need to do. I'll have you back next year. I mean, Rob, I didn't even know what the heck was going on at the time. And I didn't have the knowledge or what have you to understand it fully. But that was a collaboration between Joe and I. I had something of value to offer, and he had an audience of people who were interested in it. And it took me a little while to really grasp what happened there. But once I got it, I remember my next project was a couple of years later with the guy Mike Crow, and we did a project together and did something similar, except for it was online. It was a teleseminar. We did a teleseminar, and we did 48,000 in sales together on that. And that's when I really started to get this stuff. And through over the years, over that 12-year, 13-year period, I collaborated with hundreds and hundreds of people that helped me out. But I was never wanting to be the guy who had his hand out saying, hey, can you help me? So I would just have conversations with entrepreneurs about them, what they were working on, what challenges and problems they were dealing with. And I just started making connections with them based on what they shared. And I was like, oh, well, so-and-so can help you with that. And I'd be happy to connect you guys. And so I started doing this stuff. And it was more of just a way, that was a way for me to provide value. And then also, when you're just helpful to other people, they want to be helpful in return. They want to well, what can I do to help you? What do you got going on, Kev, or what have you? And that's how I got so many people to work with me over the years. And so, it was just a completely organic thing. And I remember the first connection that I made where the guys came back and told me how valuable it was with Perry Marshall and Brian Kurtz. And Brian at the time was working with Marty Edelston at Boardroom, who, of course, they're a huge direct mail company. And they're trying to get into the Google AdWords platform. They're trying to, do that and get on there and just testing it out. And can we make this work for us too? And he was telling me, he's like, Kevin, we're trying to do this, but man, we are just pulling our hair out internally on this thing. And I'm like, well, I said, do you know Perry Marshall? And he's like, well, I know of him, but I don't know him. And I was like, you need to get a hold of Perry and his team because they can help you guys. And he's like, can you connect me? And so I did. I just shot an email. And connected those guys, and Perry's team did in fact help, Boardroom and all of that kind of stuff. But also Perry and Brian just became great friends, went on to do this big event together. In fact, a lot of people still talk about that today because there was some pretty big name entrepreneurs and marketers that went to it. And of course, they created a lot of revenue in doing that. And that's when I was like, that's when it hit me. I was like, Kev, you really have something here. But how do you, wouldn't it be cool if you could have a business around that? But how do you do that, and how do you get compensated for that? And I remember even having a conversation with Perry, around this, saying, man, I want to do this, but it doesn't seem right that I'd say, okay, shoot an email to you guys, and here you go. Let me get you guys connected. And, oh, by the way, here's a contract, because if we do anything together, I want to share in the revenue or whatever, And so, but that seed was planted, and that was probably 7 years ago, where I'm just like, I started thinking about it. I started having conversations with people about it. I started, how can I make this a reality in my life? And it took a little bit of time to come around and figure it out. And quite honestly, I'm still figuring out things, but we've made a lot of headway. So we've made a lot of headway, and.
I'm impressed because, I see some of the big names that you're connecting with and it's like, wow, we started out in the same, the same field, and, we do have similar friends.
Yeah.
And, I'm very grateful for the relationships that I've developed. And I think that one of our mutual friends, Steve Sims, is just, one of the nicest guys out there. Most people, when they look at him, they're like kind of intimidated, but I
Well,
never
he
got
looks
that from him.
intimidating, you know?
I've had lunch with him a couple times. I went to his book launch party, and it was, he's got some connections himself. But
Yeah, yeah,
you know, I
yeah,
I look at him, and he speaks very highly of you, and it's amazing what you've accomplished over the last 20 years.
yeah. I'll tell you a little story about Steve. I'm trying to think when the first time, it's probably been 6 years since I met Steve at a Genius Network meeting that Joe was hosting. And the first night of that meeting, a bunch of us went out to dinner, and I ended up sitting at a table with Steve, and it was just Steve and I. And I just, that was the first time I'd met him, and we're just kind of really curious to get to know him a little bit. And we just kind of do an amazing conversation. Steve has lived a colorful life and has had lots of experiences. And he started sharing some of those experiences with me. But what's very interesting? I mean, he's been to Monaco. I mean, he called me one time, I think about a year ago. He's like, Kevin, you're not going to believe me. You're not going to believe where I am right now. I was like, Steve, at this point, nothing you tell me is going to surprise me. He's like, Kevin, he's like, I am at the Vatican sitting here with the Pope talking about Harley Davidsons. And I was still, I was like, you know what? I was wrong. That is pretty dang awesome. But the first time I met him, he was sharing some of these experiences like that because he's had a lot of them, but he was just so down to earth and he's like, and Kevin's like, at the end of the day, he's like, I'm just like you. He's like, I'm just a family guy who loves my wife, who loves hanging out with my kids. He's like, I don't need to live this extravagant lifestyle. He's like, I just want to be a dad and a father and a husband. He's like, and my wife, he's like, you know what? He's like, she's my childhood sweetheart. And she's the only woman I've ever been with, and God willing, she's the only woman I'll ever be with. And you know what? When somebody says something like that, for one, I mean, there's not many people I know that can say something like that. But he just connected me with me in a way that I'm like, man, I just want to get to know this guy more. I just like this guy, And it's not about what can I get from them or what can they do for me. It's just like, you just connect because you shared some personal stuff with each other. And quite honestly, by the end of that evening, Rob, I was giving him my credit card, and because he was like, long story short, but he was like, I can get you into the Oscars, and it worked out for this trip my wife and I were already planning, and so I'm handing my credit card and go, okay, let's make this happen. But here, you know what? He's like, Kevin, he's like, you know what? You and I, we've had a few drinks tonight. He's like, you hold on to that credit card. He's like, let's talk about this in the morning. If you still want to do this, then we'll do it. But that's just a great example of, Steve and I have become good friends. We've done a lot of cool stuff together now. And I just love and appreciate that guy, and you're right. That guy is very well connected, and he's helped me on a few occasions be able to facilitate connections that he had access to that I didn't. But because Steve, and you got a great relationship, he's happy to help. So. Yeah.
And it's all from that relationship that you developed at the Genius Network, which is a mastermind group.
Yeah.
How long have you been involved with Genius Network?
Oh my gosh, 10 years now. 10 years this month. Yes. Yeah. So I joined it the second year, and man, that's been a good group to be in. That's been a good.
That's connected you with a lot of people and generated a lot of income. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't go back.
Absolutely. In fact, I just had a call yesterday with 3 people and myself, and putting a big deal together. And I'm looking at I met one guy at a Dan Kennedy seminar years ago. I met another gal at Kevin Nation's mastermind, which I was in that group for a couple of years. And then the other guy I met at Genius Network just 3 years ago. And yet here, all these people, all 4 of us are now together that I met them all in these different locations that we're now, it's already well in progress, but we've got this big deal that we're all working on together. And when I was on the line, actually on Zoom with them the other day, I was like, wow, look at this. Look at what you've pulled together here. This amazing wisdom and expertise of these 3 people that they would have never met. And this would never be happening if you hadn't been doing what you do all these years. to, be in the places that you put yourself in, to form the relationships with the people that you did that with, that now you can do stuff like this. And it's pretty dang humbling, and so yeah. So
I know with me, with my family, being an entrepreneur, at least being out of the cleaning business and more in the consulting, I've gained more freedom. And I know that as an entrepreneur, when I started the carpet cleaning business, I thought, this is going to give me more freedom. I'm going to do this. But I ended up working 60-hour weeks. I ended up busting my butt. I come home every day sore. Now I'm in front of a computer, a laptop, or a cell phone. I can go anywhere in the world and work.
Yeah.
And this is the freedom that I tell people, and to have a lifestyle where you can still work if you have a laptop.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can work if you have a laptop or a cell phone or what have you. And it's amazing what technology allows us to do these days. We've got it really good compared to our parents. And what was available to them way back when.
My parents still have no idea what I do.
Yeah.
They're like, how are you making all this money?
Yep.
Because they don't see me physically working. I'm always at home doing.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Hey, tell us about this relationship accelerator. What's that all about?
So the Relationship Accelerator Network is that actually was born only a little over a year ago. And it all happened because I was taking on private clients for a while and just helping them out. And one of my clients in May of last year was like, we were having a conversation and we was kind of buttoning up, and he was like, Kevin, he's like, I want to run something by you, because he's like, you are just really well connected. And of course, I've been on the receiving end, some great introductions you've made for me to help me grow my business. But as far as I know, you've never held an in-person get-together for the purpose of just facilitating connections for great entrepreneurs. He's like, why have you never done that? And I'm like, Tim, I don't know. I just had never thought about it. And he's like, well, I'm just going to let you know right now, if you did something like that, I would certainly want to come. And that was on May 20th of last year. And so, honestly, when he made that comment, Rob, that was like an epiphany for me, because I'm thinking like, you got to be kidding me. It couldn't really be that easy, but I was like, I couldn't sleep that night. In fact, I got up at like 4:30 the next morning because I couldn't sleep. I was so excited. And I just started going through my contacts list and like, okay, who would you want to invite to this thing? If you did something like this, who would you want to invite? And I was really, particular about who I invite. Obviously they need to be entrepreneurs who are using what Dan Sullivan calls their unique ability through their business, getting great results for their clients. But on the other side, they also needed to be really giving, generous, lead with a helping hand kind of people. Because I knew if you get that kind of people together, then, great things would come from that. And so I kind of started making a list from that standpoint. And over the next 2 days, I reached out to 6 people. And I know, let me see, first guy on that list was a friend of mine, Travis Sago. Another guy was Garrett Gunderson. Kevin Nations was one of the guys I reached out to. I remember the 6th guy was Jesse Elder. But all 6 of these guys told me, Kevin, if you do this, I'm in. I'm coming to it. And Jesse went so far to say, he's like, Kevin, when are you doing this? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't have dates set yet. I'm just reaching out to a few people to see if there's interest. And he's like, well, you need to set dates. And I'm like, okay. I was like, I'll set some dates. And he's like, nope. He's like, set dates right now while we're talking on the phone. And so I was like, well, Garrett, he's going to be over, he's going to be overseas for the whole month of June and July. He's like, I can't do that. But he's like, Kevin, if you'll at least wait till August, I don't care when you do it, I'll be there. And I said, so I'm going to at least wait till August. So we set a date in August, and Jesse's like, perfect. He's like, now set another date for September. And I'm like, why is that? And he's like, well, Kev, you're going to fill this thing up. You're going to fill it up, and you might as well just do 2 days and give people a choice. So I set a date for September too, and he's like, Perfect. He's like, sign me up for August, checks in the mail. He's like, now call back the other guys, let them know the dates so you can, confirm with them. And so that was the start of this whole thing. Right after that, the next day I had to leave down to Los Angeles to go speak at a seminar I got invited to. And at that event, I ran into my friend Alex Neem, who I'd known for 10 years, hadn't talked to in about 3 years. And as we're catching up, he's asking me, well, Kev, what have you been working on? What's going on? Well, you can imagine this was top of mind. So I started telling about this. In fact, in some ways, I mean, I don't, in fact, he even commented as I was sharing, because I was like jazzed. I was like, my gosh, I'm 6 for 6. I can't remember the last time I was 6 for 6 on any dang thing. And he's like, well, Kev, he's like, you sound like you're surprised by that. And I said, well, maybe not surprised, but definitely humbled. And his comment was, well, Kev, he's like, I've known you for over a decade. And he's like, you've always been this great connector for people. But he's like, you know what? He's like, that's not why you're getting the kind of response you get. And quite honestly, he's like, that's not even your biggest asset. And I'm like, really? I was like, what do you see? And he's like, well, the reason you're getting this response and your real big asset is the fact that you, just being who you are, you have built trust with so many people over the years. He's like, that's your big asset. And he's like, that's why you're getting this kind of response. That's why people are just like, yeah, I want to come. And he's like, so what's your plan with this? And I'm like, what do you mean plan? I was like, this thing's only 3 days old. And I was like, I don't got no plan other than like hosting these 2 events. And he's like, do you want to serve these people ongoing? And I said, Alex, I was like, I would love to do that. I've been trying to figure that out for a few years now, and I haven't figured it out yet. And what that looks like, and can I monetize it? Can I get compensated for doing that? And he's like, Kevin, I could totally help you with that. And so he came on board, and we started working together on this. And quite honestly, he came on board and invested of his time and his expertise, didn't charge me a thing up front. He's like, let's just do this. He's like, because Kevin's like, I don't know anybody else but you that could even pull something like this off. I don't know anybody who can pick up the phone and call people up and say, hey, I'm doing this thing, which, by the way, Kev, you can't even describe because you've never done it before. And you get all these people saying, I'm in, yes, I'm coming. I mean, who the heck even does that? And he's like, I don't know anybody else but you can even pull this off. And he's like, so I'll come on board, I'll help you out. And then if this pans out like I think it's going to, then we can talk about, how we can maybe do more stuff together. And so he came on, he helped out, he started having conversations with people that were coming. We ended up filling up both of those events. 15 people came in August, 14 in September. One guy had to back out last minute. But with Alex's help, we just made an offer. And we because like great things happened at those 3-day events. Connections were made, businesses were forwarded. I mean, so it was just kind of like demonstrating, like, it's that, like, yeah, Kevin can make valuable connections. And so all we had to say was, you know what, you made some valuable connections here. If you would like Alex and I to continue doing this for you, we'll hold this role for you for the next year. You don't even have to come to more events. You can't, we'll do some events. You can come if you want, but if you don't even come to an event, doesn't matter. We'll just start making connections for you, and we'll find out, what those connections would be, and we'll just hold that role for you for the next year. And what we want to do is we're just going to have a retainer that we want from you, and then anything over and above that is yours. We're not going to take any share of revenue or anything like that. And we had 6 people come on board from the first event, and honestly, at that time, the first time out of the gate, we said we wanted 16,000, and so in between that and the September event, and just watching what started unfolding, I was starting to think to myself, I think we undercharged for this, because these people are really getting far more value than what we're charging. That's what we wanted. But long story short, I had a conversation with one of the guys who was coming in September. And he was asking, he knew what was going on. He knew I did the event in August, and he was asking, he's like, Kevin, what kind of offer did you make? How did it work out? I was just filling him in. And I also told him, I said, Mark, I said, I think we way undercharged for it. And I was like, I need to bump the price up. And I was like, I'm thinking 20,000 instead of the 16. And Mark was like, well, Kev, I'm just going to let you know right now, I'm in. And he's like, and for me personally, he's like, there ain't no difference between 16 or 20,000. If I'm going to cut you a check for 16, I do it for 20 because I know you can deliver and stuff. And so at the September event, we made the same offer, only said we wanted 20,000. And Mark was the first guy that said, okay, I'm in. And then 6 more people followed suit in September. And so since then, we did one other event in March and 3 more people came on board. So that's what, 6, 12, 15 from the events, but we've got a total of 27 clients in the Relationship Accelerator Network right now that we're serving. And so the other clients all came on board without even having been to an event, just having phone conversations with them and stuff. And so it's, and now, just the caliber, because what I do, the value is, the value is, that I've built this relationship capital with all these people over the years, that I can pick up the phone or I can shoot an email or a Facebook message or a text message or whatever, and I can get a response from people because I do have that relationship capital. But the real value in what I do is it's so dependent on them, because the bigger their problems or the bigger their opportunities, that's where the value is. And it doesn't matter if a connection is worth 10,000 to somebody or 100,000 or $500,000. What I do is the same. It's just the value to that person is worth more based on what they have going on. And so to kind of make that discovery, it's forced me to get out of my comfort zone a little bit. And you commented about you look at some of the people I'm connecting with, and sometimes I have that same feeling. I'm like, holy shit, look at who I'm talking to. and so I just and just quite honestly, Rob, having to get out of my own way and be okay with having conversations, because I used to get hung up in my own head and be like, wow, who in the heck are you, Kev, to be talking with so and so, and even Steve, who the heck are you to be hanging out at the Vatican talking with the Pope about Harley Davidsons? But yeah, it's been a ride. It's been a ride.
So how do the listeners get to talk to you? How do they get to join, the Relationship Accelerator, if they have the money? How do they join?
Well, so even more than having the money is, are we a right fit for each other? Because as you can probably tell, the most important thing is I got to feel like we can help you. But then also, there has to be that, we got to be on the same wavelength, core value wise, all of that kind of stuff. So that's a really, really critical piece. And quite honestly, we have had to turn down people for the group because, you bring one wrong fit person in and it's going to mess up the dynamic, And so, so far more than if they got the money is like, okay, do you have a unique ability, a gift, whatever it is that you do to serve your clients, and do you get results for your clients doing whatever it is you do? And, and quite honestly, I don't really care what that is. But if you get results for your clients doing whatever it is you do, that's the first piece. And on the other side of the coin, are you just this giving, generous, person whose default position is to lead with a helping hand? Because when you are a giver, that you get in return too, And so that's the most important things. And so if those 2 criteria are in place, usually, we need, somebody who's doing at least $100,000 a year or more in revenue to make this worthwhile, and ideally, a lot of our clients are at the $1 million a year level up to, I'm trying to think, our most, one of our biggest clients right now just closed on a $150 million term sheet a couple months ago and stuff. So it really runs the gambit. But it's not so much about the size of the client per se, but that's just kind of the range of who the clients are that we're serving and stuff. And if you kind of fit into that criteria, more than willing to have a conversation with you and find out more about you and what you got going. And I'm always straight up with people. I'm always straight up with people. If I believe we can help you, we'll map that out, and I'll tell you exactly what that looks like, exactly what steps we'll take, and how we can get quick wins for you, and all of that kind of stuff. And if we can't help, I'm gonna let you know that too. And because the last thing I'm gonna do is take money from somebody and not be able to deliver results for them.
Right, because your whole and
honestly,
my whole premise, your whole premise is all about trust creation.
Yep. And and we have, in fact, just yesterday we had a conversation with a gal. Love her. I mean, she fit all the criteria, but me and Alex were both like, you know what? I mean, we thought we were like, okay, well, we got 2 connections for her, and those could be valuable. And turns out she already knew both of them. Mm-hmm. And we're like, okay, well, so we just flat out told her, you know what? We just don't feel that we would have enough to offer you. And she was like, you know what? Thanks so much. I mean, just appreciate you guys being candid with me and stuff, And I'd love to help her. We're just, at least right now, we're just not in a position to do that. And so we just let her know that, and we'll stay in touch. And if something comes up down the road, we'll just take it from there. But and far better to do that than take somebody's money who you can't help. So. Right. So, and as much as I'd like to help everybody, sometimes it's just not possible.
Yeah. So I mean, if they fit and if they have the money, the resources, is there a website they go to, or they just pick up the phone?
You know what? We don't even have a website for this. I mean, we got a private group for our clients that no website. But you can, either connect with me on Facebook, Kevin Thompson. I think my thing is Kevin the Connector on Facebook. You can also shoot me an email. My email is kevin@maximum-response.com. And heck, I'll even give out my cell phone. I mean, I trust that it won't be abused. But you can call me and leave me a message or text me. My cell is 360-631-8680. And like I said, yeah, anybody who might be listening to this, if you fit that criteria, more than happy to have a conversation with you. So,
and see, for the audience out there, this is why Kevin is an e-hero, because he helps entrepreneurs all over. And I honestly, I think he's one that you really need to look up to, because one, he always tries to make sure that you're a right fit. So he's not spending your money, but he's also giving you maximum value if you decide that you want to join. And I think that is what most entrepreneurs fail to do, is they accept every client that comes along. And then the ones that are pure assholes, pain in the ass, pitas, which I call them, they're stuck with this money, which is good, but then they're stuck with a client that they can't get rid of. And so they're shelling out the money to get rid of the client, and they shouldn't have taken to begin with.
Yeah.
So Kevin does it the right way. So please connect with Kevin, and then, see where it goes. Because I think that, if you want to grow your business, if you're a right fit, Kevin can help you.
Sure. Happy to do it if we're a right fit. You bet.
So this was a great interview. Thank you. And
you bet, Rob.
Everybody out there, I'll see you on the next eHeroes podcast. Adios. Thanks, Kevin.
You bet, Rob.